Gather around, children, and I shall tell you all the tale of the Nightingale. Now, in China, there was this emperor, and the emperor had this palace that was full of marble floors and chandeliers, and people would come from all around the world to look at the palace, and then they would go out into the garden, and the garden was very beautiful with many flowers and fountains. Well, anyways, all the authors would come, and they would look at the palace and the garden, and they would all say, "Oh, well, it's all very beautiful, but the singing of the nightingale, that is by far the best." And the Emperor of China would read these books, and when he would come to the part of the nightingale, he would say, "I do not know of any nightingale in my kingdom." And he went to his servants, and he asked all around about this nightingale, but none of them knew what he was talking about, until finally he came to a kitchen girl, and the kitchen girl said, "Oh yes, I know of the music of the nightingale. Every morning when I came home from my mother's, I would listen to the song." And the emperor said, "Well, could you take my servants to this nightingale and ask if it could come and sing at my palace?" And the girl said, "Well, of course, your holy emperor." So anyways, the girl took the servants out into the forest, and as they were walking about, they heard a loud moan. "Brrr!" And the servants all gathered around, and they said, "Was that the nightingale?" And the girl said, "Oh no, that was just a cow." Anyways, they continued walking, and then they heard a loud croak. "Brrr!" And the servants all said, Was that the nightingale?" And the girl said, "Oh no, that was just a bunch of frogs." Anyways, eventually they arrived at a large tree, and there, sitting on one of the branches, was a nightingale. And she was singing the most beautiful song, and all the servants sat and they listened to her. And when she was finished, the servants said, "You sing the most beautiful songs we've ever heard. Will you come and sing before the emperor?" And the nightingale said, "Well, I do sing rather better in the forest, but if your emperor asks for me, I suppose I shall come and sing for him, yes." So anyways, the nightingale flew, and she went to the palace, and she sang before the emperor. Well, when the emperor heard the nightingale singing, he said, "Nightingale, please, will you sing for me every single night?" And the nightingale said, "Well, I sing better in the forest, but for your holy emperor, of course." So from that day forward, every night the emperor would listen to the nightingale's song, and people would come from all around the world to hear the nightingale's music. And one day the emperor was sitting in his room when he got a package from the Emperor of Japan, and it said, "From the Emperor of Japan to the Emperor of China. Not as good as your nightingale, but a nice little toy." So anyways, the Emperor of China opened the package, and he found this little metal nightingale with all these jewels on it. And the emperor got a watchmaker to figure out how the thing worked, and the watchmaker turned a key, and the metal nightingale began to sing a song. And the emperor was struck in awe by the singing of the metal nightingale, and he said, "Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, it would sing so nice with the other nightingale." So anyways, they got both nightingales to sing at the palace. But it didn't work out so well. The real nightingale sang from its heart, while the singing of the other nightingale, the metal one, was more mechanical and structured. And the critics all gathered around, and they said, "Well, that is not the fault of the metal nightingale, that is the fault of the real nightingale. It can't keep up." So anyways, they were all arguing amongst themselves when the Emperor of China said, "Where did the nightingale go?" And indeed the real nightingale had flew out the window. And the emperor said, "Oh, well, you know, it always was rather loose, a little bit, never followed the rules anyways. And besides, this metal nightingale is much more prettier. From now on, if that real nightingale comes into my kingdom, I shall sentence it to death." And so all the people from that day forward listened to the metal nightingale. And the metal nightingale sang the same song about 1,000 times, but no one ever tired of it. And so one day the Emperor of China was listening to the metal nightingale when it suddenly stopped singing, way before it was supposed to. And the Emperor of China became worried, and he called for his watchmaker, who looked it all over and polished the gears, and finally when he was done, he said, "Well, it should be all right. It's a little bit worn out, though." And the Emperor of China said, "Will we still be able to listen to it?" And the watchmaker said, Yes, but from now on play it only once a year. You wouldn't want the thing to break down." And so from that day forward, the Emperor of China only listened to the metal nightingale about once a year. Anyways, there came a day when the Emperor of China became very sick, And indeed he was pale white, and his eyes were filled with mist, and everyone thought for sure that the Emperor of China was going to die, and they got ready for the next emperor to take his place in line. Anyways, as the Emperor of China was laying on his deathbed, he saw a sato appear on the ground beside him, and then he looked up to see the Grim Reaper standing there with his long claws and hood, and the Grim Reaper, he sat down on the Emperor's chest, and he grabbed hold of his crown and his spectre, and Death said, "Here is your good deeds and bad deeds." And the good and bad deeds of the Emperor came before him, and the Emperor became frightened, and he said, Metal Nightingale, please sing me a song, one more song." But the Metal Nightingale didn't reply, for after all it could only sing if its gears were turned. Anyways, Death was getting closer and closer to the Emperor, and then all at once the Emperor heard singing, and he looked up to see the real Nightingale standing there singing a song. The Nightingale had came to sing the Emperor one last song in his deathbed, and as Death listened to the Nightingale sing, he said, "You have a beautiful voice." And the Nightingale said, "I'll sing you another song, if you'll let the Emperor live, and give him back his crown and spectre." And the Grim Reaper nodded his head and said, "Agreed." And so the Nightingale sang Death a song of life and of love and of beauty. And the Grim Reaper was so moved by the song that he put down the Emperor's spectre and his crown, and he left and he went away along with the Emperor's good and bad deeds. And the Emperor said, "Nightingale, you have saved my life. Ask of me anything, and I shall do it for you." And the Nightingale said, "Well, for starters, I'd like the death sentence taken off from me. And also, if I'm going to sing from your palace from now on, I'd like to be able to go into the woods and into the palace at my own choice." "Anything else?" said the Emperor of China. "Yes, I would like to fly around for you and look about what is going on in other countries. And you must do me a favor and never tell anyone that you have a nightingale doing the service for you." And the Emperor of China said, "Of course. And I shall destroy that metal nightingale and break it into 1,000 pieces." And the Nightingale looked at the metal Nightingale and said, "No, don't do that. It did its best. But from now on, maybe I should sing at night. After all, I think that old Nightingale is a little bit worn out." And the Emperor of China agreed, and the real Nightingale flew away. And anyway, soon the servants came, and they expected to find the Emperor lying there dead, and were surprised when they came to him and found him standing there alive. And the Emperor looked at his servants, and he said, "Well, good morning."